Okay, guys, welcome back to Slasher Street Podcast, and I am absolutely delighted to be joined by a very, very special guest right now. He is the writer and director of the upcoming Nightmare on Elm Street fan film, a direct sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, aptly titled Dylan's New Nightmare. From the Horror Show channel, we have Mr. Cecil Laird. So, Cecil, thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to talk with you, as I'm always excited to talk about anything Dylan's New Nightmare, but I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. I just got back from a little vacation to California with the family, and I am re-energized and ready to tackle all the things I sought to escape before I left.
Fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, and we're going to absolutely get into everything Dylan's New Nightmare. It's a project that I am super excited about. I'm a backer on the Indiegogo campaign as well.
Thank you very much.
Everyone, my pleasure. And everyone out there, if you haven't backed it already, go ahead, go and check out Dylan's New Nightmare on Indiegogo. And I'm sure by the end of this episode, you'll 100% want to go and add some funds to that campaign as well. So very exciting stuff. But before we get there, Cecil, a question that I always like to ask people on the podcast, but a bit of a kind of icebreaker question is, how did you fall in love with horror movies? What's kind of your earliest horror memory?
So the earliest horror memory is kind of, for me, a little bit, when I start to talk about it, a lot of people go, ew, and only because the story starts with, I walked into my parents' bedroom one night, and and they were actually, I walked into my parents' bedroom one night, and they were packing for a trip that we were going to take. And so they were rushing all about the room, getting different things, shoving them into suitcases and whatnot. And I walked in, and there was something on the TV, and it was really intriguing to me. And it was this guy in some kind of like little raft. He's hanging on to something, and he's hitting it with a big plank of wood. And I'm like, what is going on? It's just like pow, pow, and he's like yelling at something. And all of a sudden, this giant, massive shark comes up, bites the electrical wire, and shocks itself and dies in front of the dude. And I was like, what is this? And they were like, oh, no. And I was like, no. What is this? And, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I walked in on them with Jaws 2 on the screen. And it was my first experience with like the thrill of what, and I consider the Jaws movies horror movies. A lot of people might say, oh, they're thrillers or whatever, but whatever. They're enough horror to me. And so, yeah, that was one of my earliest experiences. And after that, I started kind of seeking out these sorts of things, and it was made easy by the fact that I was right next to video stores growing up my whole life. And specifically, there was one called Video Update that was basically on Tuesday. You could get something like 4 movies for like $2 or something like that. And so I would just go, and they had this massive horror section, and I would just burn through series. Like anything that was interesting, the box art, I'm sure you understand the love of the box art, So yeah, that just kind of spurred everything on. The first time I saw Jaws 2 on screen, not Jaws 1, it was Jaws 2, but that was an intriguing part to pop in on. And yeah, from then on, I just started seeking everything out, which eventually led me to my 2 favorite slashers, and history was made for me in that time.
Awesome. Yeah, I must say, and I keep saying this on the podcast, I say it so many times, that I totally missed this 80s boom of going into the video store and seeing the awesome covers. And I was born in 1992, and by the time I was kind of relatively old enough to want to go into the video store on my own, I was literally at the dregs end of Blockbuster.
right, where you were getting all of the Asylum knockoff movies that would be like proudly displayed. It wouldn't even be as highbrow as Sharknado. It would be like Spider, who the hell knows, Spider Hurricane or something like that.
I think what's it? Is it Tirana? The one with I keep forgetting them. But there was like Tirana Volcano. It's a giant spider volcano.
There was Lavalantula.
Lavalantula, that's the
Yes.
one. Yes, yeah. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So, do you have any personal favorite horror movies? You've just touched on there. You had two personal favorite slasher movies. So,
I do. Well, slashers, two favorite slashers. I am a big fan of both Freddy, clearly, and Chucky. I tended to gravitate towards slashers with personalities rather than what I lovingly refer to as the walking wall that is Michael Myers, or the breathing walking wall that is Jason Voorhees. I personally always like Jason a little bit better than Michael Myers, but both of them were limited in interest to me because they didn't have the zhuzh, that
yeah.
Freddy and Chucky had, as far as personalities go. Like, you always want to cheer for the slasher in these movies by the second, third, fourth entry. And I just found it a lot easier to cheer for the ones with personality. And then Jaws was the franchise that brought me into it. So I've always, shark movies are my creature features are my favorite subgenre of horror. Shark movies within that being my particular favorites. But because I loved the Jaws movies, I loved The Shallows, and even 47 Meters Down is super enjoyable, both of them to me. So like, I'm kind of what it taught me to be was very lenient in my viewing experiences. I tend to like quite a bit. There's certain things, certain aspects that I might not like about a movie, but for the most part, I can be entertained by most things. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that was discipline trained in me by watching B horror growing up.
yeah. I'm always like that as well. I'm a total sucker for, I'm always like, doesn't matter how bad the film is, I'm going to sit through it because you just never know.
Especially if it's a sequel. Like, I have to know what happens. It might be terrible, but I've watched 8 already. Like, how am I going to not watch the 9th one? Yeah. It's the same reason I'll go and eventually I'll watch this new Children of the Corn movie just because. Yes. I have to, call it OCD or whatever, call it completionist, but I got to do it.
I'm like that, especially with box sets and just kind of just getting the collection together. If I'm 4 movies in and they just get progressively worse, Wrong Turn being one of them, I have to finish. I have to get them all. It's just, it's an obsession and a disease.
It's so much so that I literally I don't have a wall's worth of DVDs anymore. I have CD jackets full of DVDs at this point because I just I can't justify the space of having all of the DVDs that I have because there's so many goddamn horror movies.
Yeah, I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain. So before we get into Dilly's New Nightmare real quick, you actually obviously run and started an incredibly successful YouTube channel, the horror show channel. So which now has close to 45,000 subscribers on there, which is absolutely incredible. So that started in 2014, I believe. So what was the idea behind starting the YouTube channel kind of way back then? Was it just to kind of get your views out there on horror and a bit of fun?
It's kind of interesting, actually. The whole thing started because my longtime partner in film, producer Dave, he's called on our channel. He actually was talking to a local director that that had an idea for something he wanted to do, where he wanted to create a show where he would interview local small horror filmmakers to spotlight their films. And they brought me in on it because they knew how much I love horror. This director ended up not being someone that was very smart to keep in your life because he kind of used people and dumped them aside. And in order to make he's the kind of person that I didn't want to be. He was the kind of horror director, and I'll refrain from saying his name, but he's done some movies that has gotten some attention on the internet because of how low budget and bad they are, specifically referring to perhaps A Christmas Creature that everyone loves to watch movies about. He may have made a couple of those really low budget ones that got attention because of how bad they are. But he was satisfied with getting a little bit of money to make a really low budget horror movie that was not going to be good in order to make a little bit of money to last until the next one that he did. And it's like, that's just not the level I wanted to get to. But at the same time, well, before we knew all the intricate details, he had an idea for this show. And I said, yeah, I can help with that. And I was like, and wouldn't it be cool if we like talked about the horror, all the horror movies coming out? We could, react to projects. We could interview, people about horror stuff that they do and go to conventions and things. And like I put together this whole idea and I presented it to him. And he immediately was like, well, this is way more than I wanted to do. I don't even think I have time to do what I suggested. So no, I don't think so. And Dave was like, well, and I was like, all right, well, we should just do it. And so we put together the horror show channel, and it's, we've grown well enough. Our biggest bout of growth was during 2017 when It Chapter 1 came out. We had big coverage then, and we loved it. And we did a lot of things. We did the It VR experience, put it on the channel and stuff like that. So we had a big amount of growth. But we did everything from reviews to trailer reactions to celebrity interviews. We would go to horror conventions and just do on the fly interviews with them. And we got a lot of big people on the channel. We've had Sid Haig on the channel, Elvira on the channel. We've talked to, oh my God, I'm going to blank on a bunch of people, but we have like 30 celebrity interviews on there. David Howard Thornton, the Terrifier guys, obviously everyone's big on the Terrifier train now. So yeah, we just decided to put this show together, and we found some like-minded individuals that wanted to. But yeah, so we gathered the like-minded individuals, and we just started to record this variety content, which unfortunately YouTube tends to punish a variety of different content on a single channel. So we haven't grown quite as much as perhaps we could have otherwise. But I would rather be the one-stop shop for people that want to see all different kinds of things under the horror umbrella than just focus on one particular thing. The thing I've been proudest of, though, on the channel are the like comedy sketches and like the real original material that we don't get to do that often because there's so much other material to be done. But that kind of stuff really, like the most recent one I did was like the 10 worst friends to watch horror movies with, where it was me, and it was like an annoyed me, and the other person is always a different kind of person you don't want to watch a horror movie with. And it was a lot of fun. And that's the kind of stuff I love really doing on the channel.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's grown quite comfortably. So 45,000 subscribers is definitely nothing to be sniffed at, I must say. That's
fair. That's fair.
Hell of an achievement.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's get into it. Let's get into Dylan's New Nightmare. So obviously you are the writer and director. It's a sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Dylan's New Nightmare. And this is something that has been in the pipeline now for many, many years. I remember actually seeing something go up on possibly Killer Flicks. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago now. So this has been a long, long time coming. So basically started at the beginning, kind of how did this idea come about? Like specifically kind of making a Nightmare on Elm Street fan film, and then even more specifically a sequel to New Nightmare. So how did this idea come about for you?
So it was an interesting series of events. I would say the initial inspiration to do it would be after watching and reviewing Never Hike Alone for the channel in 2017. Now, technically, we did do a fan film in 2016 called Sweet on the channel, which was an American Vampire fan film, which is a comic book series co-created by Stephen King. And we made that. It was a 9-minute short film on just under $2,000, and it was a lot of fun. But I didn't even really consider it at the time that it was like a fan film, because that term hadn't really super been popularized on like the sci-fi Star Wars side of things. It absolutely had been, but within the horror community, it hadn't really been bandied about that much. But once we saw Never Hike Alone, I started to think, well, what property would I care enough about to maybe do a fan film of? And I thought about Chucky, but Charles was already in the works back then as well. That was another long time coming project that ultimately got a little screwed by the studio. But I was like, yeah, I don't think doing a Chucky film would be smart, considering, how much money it would take to do it right. You know what I mean? And so I was like, well, what do I care about the most that would be the most fun that you could do on a lower budget. And I thought of Freddy, not so much on the lower budget side of things, but that's sort of where the Wes Craven aspect came in, because there aren't intricate dream sequences that you have to pay for if you stick within that sort of circumstance. But Freddy is where I landed.
Mhm.
Now, the reason I got to Dylan's New Nightmare is because we were at the time Mad Monster Party, that horror convention. It's a big horror convention it's in the US. There's one in North Carolina and one in Arizona. And I think they have another event as well. I think, it's like God, I forgot what it's called, but it's focused on like gangster movies and things like that. But Mad Monster North Carolina, we were going to go cover as press, and Miko Hughes was going to be there. And I was like, oh, well, wouldn't it be fun to do like a catch up with Dylan, after all these years? And I like thought about it, and I found a way in story wise, because, well, I don't know if you want me to get into the story aspect of it yet, but just how it came about was, I was like, okay, well, let me ask him if he'd even be into the idea of doing a fan film. And because we were doing the celebrity interviews at the convention, because we were the official press, we had established this connection at Mad Monster Arizona throughout the years, covering it since 2014. And so we basically, I sat down to do the interview. And like one of the last questions was, and so, Miko, if with the research, or with the new surge of what are called, like fan films in the horror genre with Never Hike Alone and stuff like that, if someone ever came to you with like a script for something called, I don't know, Dylan's New Nightmare, would that be something you would like consider looking at? And he's like, yeah, if it's good material, I'd at least take a look at it, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, cool. I thanked him for his time. That interview is up on our channel, and you can see that question in there. But then I was like, okay, and Miko was going to be a guest at Mad Monster Arizona about 4 months later. So I was like, okay, so I took the time and wrote the script in the meantime. And I approached him at Mad Monster Arizona, where we were also the press. And I basically said, hey, you remember that question I asked you? Well, I wrote the script for Dylan's New Nightmare if you'd want to read it. And he's like, oh, okay. And he was very cordial. He's like, yeah, I'll try and look at it, on the plane ride home or something. And this was on Friday. It's a weekend long event. And then Friday night, we did a event that night, and we were covering like the burlesque show for the event. And he was in attendance. And while we were filming it, he came up in the middle of the show and he was like, hey, pretty cool, huh? And I was like, yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah. And he said something else, and I was like, yeah, and I just kept filming. And after the event, he came up, he's like, hey man, how's it going? I was like, hey Miko, what's up? He's like, you didn't hear me, huh? And I was like, oh, I was like, no, I didn't hear the second part. Sorry, it was really loud and stuff. And he's just like, I said, I read the script and I really liked it. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. And so we talked from there, and it just developed because I initially approached him with Vincent DeSanti from Never Hike Alone, because Vincent was a guest at Mad Monster that year. The previous year he had gone and he needed a place to stay. So my introduction to Vin was letting him crash at my house after Mad Monster one night. So the next year when he was coming back, he's like, hey man, let's link up and chat. And so we did. And I told him about Dylan's New Nightmare, and he's like, that sounds like a good idea. And I was like, would you be willing to walk up to Miko with me to maybe lend a little credibility? And he's like, yeah, I can give you a Blu-ray to give him and stuff. And I was like, great, awesome. And so Vin actually walked up when I handed him the script. And so that kind of started the whole ball rolling, started the fact that it was me, Vin, and Miko. And then we just started bringing in other people after that point to try and make it turn into a reality. And the easiest way for me to explain this project has been, it's just been a series of wouldn't it be cool ifs that continue to happen. And it's been very exciting along the way.
That's awesome. So do you think if, for example, if Miko had said, oh, no, that's not for me, because, it's a fan film, some people, and back then, it's like you say, it was a bit different back then. It's not like the fan films now have huge kind of gravitas, really, in the
They
fan base.
can. They don't all, but they
not
can.
all of them, the good ones. But if Miko had said, for example, no, that's not for me, would you have still pushed on with like a New Nightmare kind of vibe, or would you have gone something
I don't
totally
think
different?
so. No, I don't think so, because I think that, so at the time, I had talked to Vin, and obviously at the end of Never Hike Alone, we see Tom Matthews, and I was like, oh shit, that's a thing. And so I thought Miko was a really good way in, because everyone remembers Miko from various different movies from when he was a kid. And I just happened to believe that he could pull off acting now as an adult. He hasn't, one of his concerns is that he hasn't technically acted in like 25 years or something like that. And so he was like, I don't know. Like, that's the whole thing. The whole time he's been like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but he's willing to give it a try. And all I know is that by the end of the shooting week in November, when we finally got to shoot it, he was very happy, and he had very kind words to say afterwards, saying that he wasn't sure that, acting was going to be something that he could still try for. But after this, he was thinking maybe that's not the case. And so that was really meaningful and stuff like that. But the project just snowballed with cool stuff all along the way. And it was just awesome.
That's brilliant. So how did he kind of slot in terms of, his transition back in? Because he hasn't acted in so long, as you said. And was it like kind of riding a bike for him? Like in terms of picking up the character of Dylan again? Was it like time hasn't passed?
So the thing about it is Miko is very talented when it comes to acting. We all knew that when he was younger, but while he hasn't been on screen, he's been very much behind the scenes doing film work ever since. So he does everything from, he's been camera op, he does DIT, which is data transfer stuff, but you have to be very meticulous and on point for that job. Like, he's done a lot of different behind the scenes jobs. He just hadn't done the acting thing for a while. So he was excited to get back into it. And what we saw, so originally we basically wanted to do this. So we got together, we got everyone, a crew together to film a teaser trailer that would be used to crowdfund Dylan's New Nightmare. And I ended up spending about $7,000 on the teaser trailer myself to do that. But I think it was very much worth it, because it allowed us to raise the funds that we have through varying stages along the way. And Miko really demonstrated when we filmed that teaser trailer that he was there to play. He was in it to win it, so much so that when we filmed the movie, even though, yes, it had been a long time and there was reasons for that, he's what we called on book, right? On set, you say they're on book when they know their shit and they don't need line readings and stuff like that. Like, he was on book. He knew every single line throughout every single moment, and he was giving us different things in different takes. And what was amazing to see, now that I've seen the rough cut that is in the process of being colored and stuff like that, he did so many little intricate things that only really good actors are known for, that I truly believe that he demonstrates such skill in this that his phone is going to be ringing after this thing comes out. I'm that confident in his, because he gave us so much on set. It was amazing.
That's brilliant. So in terms of also, we'll get into kind of the story aspect and things like that, but you have the very talented, the awesome Dave McRae. Obviously, many people in the community know Dave McRae. He's a fantastic voice actor, fantastic YouTuber. And when I was checking out this project and saw that Dave was playing Freddy, I got even more excited about seeing the film. So in terms of like casting such like an iconic character in Freddy Krueger, how tough was that? Did you always know that Dave was your first choice man, or did you go through like a casting process for Freddy, or how did that all kind of work?
Again, it's another sort of wouldn't it be cool if, right? So the whole project started off because I knew or I know a man named Robert who does a really excellent Freddy cosplay out here. So much so that we actually had him on the channel to do a review of the first Nightmare on Elm Street along with a commentary as Freddy. That's on the channel as well. That if you're interested in Dylan's New Nightmare and you'd like to know, the guy that did those on our channel, you can look him up on the channel. That was supposed to be Freddy for the film. But along the way, we brought Miko in. We brought in more and more talent, and he became a little more and more distant. And I was like, what's up, man? And he's just like, yeah, I don't know if I can commit to a whole film. And I was like, so at that point, things had started to shift for me because I became more involved with the Dave McCrae side of things. As a fan of his channel, I was a big fan. And Dave and I actually met when they did the Halloween, I think it was the 35th anniversary or whatever it was, where they did the Halloween event in LA or in California. That's where I actually met Dave. And that's where I got the idea, because I'd seen him do a lot of just being Freddy on his channel. And I was like, God, wouldn't it be smart to cast, like, if you really have to, if we're doing a Freddy fan film that's involving, an original character from the original movies, we need to nail that character. We got Miko, so we should be good there. But we got to nail Freddy. You're doing a Freddy fan film. You got to nail Freddy. And I was like, wouldn't it be smart to do someone that I already knew can do a version of the voice, but I also know can do the physical mannerisms just based on things that he's done on his channel, just little movement tests and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, let me see if this could be a feasible thing. So I had Dave on for an interview on my channel to just interview Dave McCrae, because I've interviewed, a lot of different YouTubers along the way. And I just decided to throw in some questions that I might use as a sort of audition. And so I was like, so I know you can do a Freddy voice. So like, what would happen if, and I had like, I think 2 or 3 lines for him to deliver or something like that as Freddy. And I basically just threw those in and he did it. And I think I had him do like a ghost face. I was like, what would you do if you were a ghost face? What would you do if you were Freddy? What would you do if you were something else? Just to sort of do that secretly. And he did it such a great job that after the fact, I told him, I was like, yeah, that was kind of a backdoor audition. How would you feel about doing this? And he said he was on board. So that's when I talked to our Freddy, who was already distant. And I was like looking for a way to get, move towards Dave. And he was just like, yeah, I don't know if it's for me. And I was like, you know what? I totally understand. No problem at all. We're still friends. All good. And I was able to ask Dave if he'd be interested. And Dave was immediately about it. And it's really, really cool. So much so that one of the neatest things about, or after the shoot that we got to see, was Dave made a little picture where it was him like 30 years ago as a kid in a old rubber Freddy mask and an old Freddy glove, almost in the exact same position as we have him in one shot from the movie. So it's him 30 years ago as a kid Freddy, and him as Freddy in our film below. It's one of my favorite pictures that came out of it that he put together, and he's going to release it after the movie releases, so everyone will see that. But for the time being, we can't show that to you, of course. But it's that sort of full circleness of it all. Like, it was just really cool to see. Again, wouldn't it be cool if? Just worked out very well.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. I mean, so how did Dave kind of approach it? Because you've obviously, seen him on set as Freddy. Jumping into such an iconic role is, I would imagine, very challenging. And for example, it didn't quite work out for Jackie Earle Haley. Previous kind of people have tried to do it and not done it a great job. And even some fan films that are online, it's a bit shaky, let's say the least, shall we say.
I shall never speak ill of another fan filmmaker. But yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So kind of, how did Dave do for you in terms of, were you just like, did he exceed all expectations in terms of like the performance?
So we actually purposely had a reveal for the cast and crew on set. And it was recorded for behind the scenes. It was all purposefully planned because I knew bringing Nora Hewitt on to do the makeup with a sculpt from Mikey Rotz, who if you didn't like, just to prove Mikey Rotz's talent, he sculpted the Freddy mask. Nora did the application, the painting, and all that stuff. They worked together on it. Nora and I consulted on the Freddy looks we wanted to pull from to create ours. What was really cool is we both had two specific looks that we loved the most, and independently of one another, we had the exact same two looks from all the movies that we loved the most that we wanted to mash together. So Nora and I were on point from the beginning as far as vision goes. But Dave the whole time like was prepared to embody the character. And what was the reason I bring up the sculpts and everything was Mikey Rotz, just to put it in perspective, he also sculpted the creature at the end of Smile, which just made over $200 million, just last year. So the big Smile creature, that's the same guy that sculpted our Freddy. So, but once the application was done from Nora, Dave even says, he's like, I had an idea of what the makeup was going to look like, but once I saw this, then I saw that particular look you were drawing from, and that informed my delivery. So just suffice it to say that we always loved the scary Freddy a lot more than the goofier Freddy. And when we blend Scary Freddy and New Nightmare Freddy and one other Freddy that I'm not going to ruin, it all came together in a wonderful collage. But we purposely had it set up where the first time he was going to be in makeup, they would let us know, and the crew would gather on one side and the cast too, and we would have a camera on us and a camera on him as he came in, and we filmed that. That will be in the behind the scenes feature that we're putting together. But everyone, like, the jaws dropped, the oohs, the ahs when he came in. It was just unbelievable. And he just embodied the character. He had the mannerisms. One of the takes that is actually one of the shots that we released, because we released 5 still images from the movie in January. One of them was what we called the goblin shot, where he's like turned towards camera and he's laughing and he looks exactly like Robert looked in the original movies. And I called that, I was like, he looks like a fucking goblin. So that became the goblin shot. And that brought so much attention to us because it was the very first image we released, but that was just a thing he did naturally. And like, it was off of something we hadn't planned in the script, but something happened on set. And so he went with it. And then that moment came out of it. And as soon as it happened, when I was watching it, I grabbed the shirt of the person next to me. I can't even remember. It might've been Dave, my producer buddy that was just right there. Our producer Dave, who I mentioned earlier. Yeah, he was right there. I think I grabbed him. And like, there was so many moments like that, but everyone, so one of the people involved that provided a lot of equipment, he's like in his 60s. He's been doing production for 40 years. He showed up and I was like, Steve, go look at Dave's makeup so far. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah, just go check it out. And he goes, 5 minutes later, he comes back, he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, holy fucking shit. I was like, yeah, exactly. But, it was all in Dave's performance. He just was ready to be Freddy. Oh, God, that was poetic. But yeah, he was ready to be Freddy for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And like the images you released back in, was it November, December time now? I can't actually remember.
I think it was late December. You're right. I thought it was January, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it was December.
Yeah, I remember seeing those images and just being blown away. And the whole horror community was blown away as well. There were so many videos on YouTube about it. And I mean, what a way to sell the movie, just on those 3 images as well. But yeah, so I was going to just ask, in terms of the images that you released there, how much attention did that bring to you? Because the Indiegogo campaign has done pretty well anyway. But did that just expand it even further?
Yeah, I won't lie. I mean, I'll tell you the exact numbers. I'm very transparent about it all because I'm putting every bit of it back into the movie for sure. So we had raised, I think at that point, between the two campaigns, we got to the 40,000 that we needed. But after we released those images, I think we've raised an additional, at this point, I think we've raised an additional 13,000 from just those 5 still images. So that's allowed us to do a lot better post-production. I mean, again, we announced the editor a few weeks back, and I mean, he's currently one of the editors on Chucky, the TV series. He was the visualization editor for Black Widow and Godzilla versus Kong. He edited on Brand New Cherry Flavor and Hulu's Evil series. He's been one of the editors on the past 3 VHS movies, if not all 4 of them. Like he's super talented and he's been kicking ass. And now we have a little bit of budget to put towards the VFX, which we definitely need. Put towards the sound. You know, we have a whole sound team now. So like it's everything is going so much further. What's been nice is that people have seen the footage we shot and have been like, oh yeah, okay, I want to be a part of this. And just like those 5 images, it allowed us to hire the people that are going to ensure that the rest of the film looks as good as those 5 images did.
Yeah, awesome. Can I also ask you about the Freddy glove in this film as well? Because I think this design is very unique to your film. It's so how did you come up with the design of your Freddy glove? And I suppose as a leading question as well, like your Freddy in general as well, because your whole concept of Freddy is very unique and not something that we've seen in any Nightmare movie yet, from what I've seen and heard. So kind of how did it all go about, and you know, the glove design as well?
Okay, cool. I'm happy to go into it. Again, I apologize if I tend to be a little bit long-winded when I talk about this stuff, just because I love it so much. I go into detail.
That's absolutely cool with me, man. Not a problem at all.
But yeah, so the look, I mean, I can say for sure that based on the images, I think everyone can tell that part 2 was a big influence on our design. The sunken in eyes, but if you look closely, there's a shape to the sunken in eyes that, I mean, I'll just tell you, I haven't told a lot of people, but you know, the people that listen to your podcast will get a little bit of an insight. That extra Freddy look that you see, there's a bit of Demon Freddy in there from Freddy versus Jason. With the diamond eyes and stuff. And that was part of the plan. And it came out looking great. Now, as far as the total look, we went clearly with the New Nightmare sweater. So it's the green on top and the green on the cuffs instead of vice versa. I personally always dug that. It's a lot dirtier because, again, this is, in my mind, this is the form that he has taken, having reformed himself in the mind of Dylan. Because when we get to story, I'll explain how all that works in my own brain. But because no one else knows. But yeah, went with the New Nightmare sweater, ditched the leather pants, went with the more work black pants, but it works. Went with the boots, the heavier boots that he kind of had in New Nightmare, not the full combat boots, but the heavier boots that work. And then perhaps something else that hasn't necessarily been revealed yet will be a part of the look too, that some people really, really like. And I don't know how many people, but if you like New Nightmare, you might like it. So as far as look goes, that's what we went with. Also, the fedora is the olive green fedora instead of the brown fedora. That is so olive green from New Nightmare as well, but just worn and weathered, and actually caressed by McCrae himself, because the bill was pretty flat, but he managed to work it so it's now curved down in that classic Freddy style. So it all just coalesces very, very well. Glove wise, so the idea was, again, I worked with glove designer Mark Phillips from Nightmares Unlimited, and he has done replica gloves for years, as well as he does, you know, Phantasm balls. He does concept gloves, like he has a Phantasm Nightmare glove where it's screws and the ball on the hand. And you know, I actually, one of the things that one of the wrap gifts that I gave Vince was he did a Freddy glove, but it was Jason's mask here, the Ghost Jason version of Jason,
yeah.
and all the blades were little machetes. So he does concept gloves like that. And so we were talking like, what can we do? Because obviously the new Nightmare glove was very unique with the musculature and the fifth blade and all that stuff. I was like, I like the original gloves better. He's going to go back to that, but I want to bring in design elements from the new Nightmare glove all throughout. So we went with the armature is this part, the back plate is straight black. I think I have it right over here, actually. Let me grab it real quick.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. So, yeah. The people that can see this,
Yeah.
We went with a black glove because the armature is red and black. That red and black here across the knuckles is meant to emulate the musculature, the red musculature of the original glove. The chrome back, I forget what these are called right here, but these are essentially meant to emulate the bones of the glove. But the chrome works really well with the red, and we went with the new Nightmare curved blades as well. But the cool thing is that the designer did all this copper wire veinage that actually goes up around some of the bones and across the fingers. So that's meant to emulate the veins. So the whole thing is like old glove, but with all of the new Nightmare glove elements woven in really cool ways. The problem with the teaser trailer is it didn't showcase this very much. So a lot of people are like, why are they using the remake glove? It's like, just because they saw these pieces, but they didn't see the color of it and why it makes sense the way that it does. But yeah, that's our glove right there.
Damn, that is awesome. That is awesome. I believe people can pick can people buy those, Cecil? Is that still available as a thing?
Yes, it is. It is. Some people might consider it pricey, but remember, you are contributing to the film, and remember that the intricacies of the glove with the copper wiring, excuse me, with the copper wiring and everything else, it's not an unpricey thing to get. But the campaign is the only place you can get them. You cannot get that. No one else makes them. And Mark will not make them outside of the campaigns due to my request and due to our agreement. So the campaign, if you are a glove collector and you want the Dylan's New Nightmare glove, because, a lot of people might consider it part of the continuity. We can't say that it is, but that's the idea behind it, of course. So if you want that, then the campaign is the only place you can get it.
Perfect. Awesome. So people out there, if you want one of those, go and pick those up. And Cecil, if I could just ask as well, I don't know if we've touched on it just yet, but in terms of the version of Freddy that we're going to get, the new Nightmare Freddy is, synonymous for being a bit of a return to form in terms of being scary after, Freddy's dead and all that kind of stuff. So what kind of Freddy will we be seeing in this film? Would it be a cluster of everything, or will he be scary Freddy? What can you tell us about that?
So he's definitely scary Freddy. My thinking when I was writing the script, I did put a couple of jokes into it, but to me they were only jokes insofar as they're funny to the audience. What it is it's really mean things that he's saying that are funny because they're so mean in the situation that he's in. And now I will say that both of the jokes that I wrote, we cut when we were on set. In retrospect, I should have just shot them in case I wanted to use them anyway. But we cut them because we had built such a scary Freddy throughout the process that we didn't want to do anything to undermine that at all or make people think that we're trying to go jokey Freddy. We very much like Nightmare 2 Freddy and New Nightmare Freddy and Nightmare 1 Freddy. He started to change in Freddy 3. I love Freddy 3. It's probably my favorite installment of the franchise still. But as far as Freddy goes, we are keeping it in 1, 2, and 7 territory. The interesting thing for some people, if you're interested in what those two jokes are, we do have a signed script perk that is available. And the script has the jokes inside along with a couple of other cut lines of dialogue. But you can see that the jokes were never jokey. They were just really shitty things that he said that would make the audience laugh because of the context of when he's saying them. Oh. That's the Freddy I want. I wanted mean Freddy. That's what we went with.
Awesome. You've just said about the script there, and actually, I'm just going to ask a question for my own selfish reasons. For my because I'm based in the UK, so if I can, I usually just try and opt for the digital pack of things to save on postage costs because I'm a bit of a cheapskate that way. But I think part of that pack is you do get like a readable version of the screenplay. So would those jokes be included in that?
They will be in there too. Yep, they will be.
Okay.
Yeah, will be. But you know, if someone wants a hard copy, they can get it. But you're right. Yes, you will get it in the digital. Every perk came with the digital download pack, so everyone will technically get a copy of the script as well. So you can read them there. But the signed scripts are signed by like 7 or 8 people, so you know they might be interested in that. I think at the final count, it was myself, Vin, Miko, Dave, Ron Sloan, Cindy Kania, and our producer or our DP Ben Meredith as well. So yeah, seven signatures. I think that. Oh, and Nora signed them as well. So
okay.
8 signatures. Yeah, all the key people in the process have those signed. But yeah, either way, you'll be able to read what those jokes are, which is actually that's a good point, and I'm glad that will be included in the digital download. I forgot about that. So yeah, everyone will be able to read the jokes. That's good.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And,
beautiful.
You've just touched on a couple of people there, Ron and Cecilia, rather, in terms of the casting. I wanted to ask about the casting of the film because you do have a few Friday the 13th alumni in there. What was the process for the casting? Did you already know the people that you wanted to include in the film, or did you have to go further out to kind of do a bit of a casting call? Or
so for those particular parts, I had Ron's character is someone that Ron very much worked for. That we were going to need to cast in that age range anyway, and Vin had obviously the connection to Ron via 13 Fanboy and the Friday the 13th series, and Ron was just a very affable guy all around anyway, so that's the kind of energy we wanted on set. And so Ron was fantastic, and he did a great job. People are going to be surprised because he goes for it. It was funny because our director of photography, Ben, he's worked with Ron before, and Ron's usually played, you know, low-key characters, kind of father figure-y at times and stuff like that. But he's like, he kept looking at me on set. He's like, this is weird to see Ron act like this. It's so unnerving. But yeah, so Ron did a great job in his part, and I got to him through Vin, and pretty much the same through Cindy as well. Like we were trying to figure some things out for the part that Cindy played, but once her name was thrown into the ring, I was like, oh, she looks like she would be perfect for the part. And she actually like really killed it. Like everyone brought it so much for this movie. It's really exciting. Miko killed it. Ron killed it. Cindy killed it. Dave absolutely killed it. Even our smaller parts, they all really brought it. But yeah, Cindy, who was also from the Friday the 13th series, just a different part than Ron. Vin suggested her, and we had her in for the table read, and she did a wonderful job at the table read, which was, she actually was the last part to be cast, and she was cast really not terribly far out from shooting, and she just nailed it. Like she nailed the vibe that I was going for, and it just was incredible. Like I'm just so happy because again, we made that short film for Sweet in 2016, and it was all friends of friends of friends, and it was that kind of production, which is what most fan films end up being. But when you actually can raise a little bit of budget and bring in some talent and make it an actual project that everyone can take part in, then it does raise the level, and it makes things a lot more exciting, in my opinion.
Yeah. And a bit more, and I'm not that I'm not saying the others aren't, but it makes it a bit more legit, I think.
Agreed. Lends credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's obviously what has worked really well for Vin with Tom Matthews and Vincent. I can't pronounce his last name.
Gustafaro.
Gustafaro.
Yep.
But just having those guys in the film, it creates a buzz. It creates a legitimacy. And
well, and I purposely went. Sorry, not to cut. Just to this point, I purposely went with Friday the 13th alumni because, again, New Nightmare takes place in our world, and story-wise, I didn't want to cut out any possibilities of playing with Nightmare alumni that might need to be involved story-wise, depending on where we go and things like that. So I feel like touching on Friday the 13th alumni was a little more workable for me.
Yeah, and cool to have that crossover as well. Between the two franchises,
especially with Vin. Yep.
Yeah. So, without giving too much away, what can you tell us about the story of the film? Because we've kind of touched on aspects of it. So, without spoiling anything, what is the gist? Can you tell us about it, basically?
So I can tell you most about the setup for it. So in my mind, in the context of Dylan's New Nightmare, what happened was, if you recall the end of New Nightmare, anyone that hasn't watched it recently, I'll recount the end for you. So basically, Dylan is being looked at the hospital. Heather is being investigated by the doctors and questioned about possible child abuse because he's got bruises and hasn't been sleeping and stuff like that. And obviously babysitter Julie is killed, and Dylan bolts, and Heather then goes after him, leaving before having answered all questions and resolved anything. And she just rushes after him, crossing the freeway, right? He is taken by Freddy. She has to take a bunch of sleeping pills to join him. They defeat Freddy. Freddy explodes at the end after some really bad demon CG. But in my mind, after he exploded, his essence went into the mind of Dylan to hitch a ride, to escape. They jump out and, they find the script, and she starts reading the script to him as the camera backs out and fades to black, cuts to credits. Credits technically start before they fade to black. But in my mind, after they fade to black, you hear, open up, Miss Langenkamp, we know you're there. It's that kind of thing. It's the police demanding explanations about why she and the kid disappeared. And like she has nothing. And so she says Freddy, and to add insult to injury, because she had to take all the sleeping pills to join Dylan, she's fucking, her blood mixture is all mixed up, and so that doesn't reflect well on her. So she's basically sent to a mental asylum because she's trying to say that she had to defeat Freddy to get her son back and stuff like that. And she's put into an asylum, and Dylan's put into foster care. She is never able to get out, and so he is left through the foster system, but he eventually tries to become an actor and work in Hollywood because both of his parents did. Obviously, his mom being an actor, his dad, Chase, being special effects. So in my mind, that's where the story starts. When I first came up with the idea, it was 25 years after the end. Now it's approaching 30 years after New Nightmare. But he's out there trying to be a working actor. And what happens if Freddy, having been hiding away in his mind for 25 years, slowly feeding on his nightmares to get stronger and stronger, what happens if he's finally strong enough to exit and come into our world through Dylan, like he was trying to do all those years ago? So that's the basics of the story. Dylan has to deal with that scenario.
Awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait to see this film. I honestly can't. And I think it's going to run 25 minutes, I think I saw. Is that still the plan?
The rough cut is about 25 minutes. We shot a little bit of additional material that we had planned to do. So the whole running time without credits might push 28 to 30 minutes. And then with credits, probably 35, 36 minutes. It'll be a longer credit sequence because of all the backers and stuff, as fan films tend to have. But we have some really kick-ass music to fill that time. So we're very excited I am super excited to present the music that we have. We've got some really cool songs that people are going to adore, that are very much up the Freddy vein, that they're going to really love. So
that's awesome. And are they original songs to the film?
Yes, so there's one original kind of hip hop song that is in the vein of the credits song from, I think, Nightmare 5, if I'm not mistaken. We went a little old school nostalgic with that. That'll be in the credits, but we have one original song called Another Nightmare, and that is going to be done sort of in the style of the 80s hair metal around the time where Freddy actually had lines in the song and stuff like that. So we're doing a little bit of that. And then we're doing one mashup that people are going to lose their fucking minds over, because I've heard it, not fully mastered yet, but I've heard the rough version, and it's so fucking cool. And I have been listening to it on repeat just as a Freddy fan. And people that love perhaps the two biggest songs from the Nightmare franchise are going to be very, very happy with the mashup.
Oh, man. Now you've got me teased now, because obviously there's two horror movie songs which are just on my playlist all the time, and that is He's Back, the man behind the mask from Alice Cooper.
Okay.
And Dream Warriors Dokken is always on my playlist. Two of the best horror movie songs.
Dream Warriors may be one of them.
Oh, man. I cannot wait. Can't wait to hear it. I'm not going to push you anymore on that, because I can tell that's going to be a secret. And as much as you would love to tell the world about it, I'm
very bad about secrets. So yeah, please don't push.
We'll leave that to let you make that announcement when it eventually comes. I think that's a great tease, though, for everyone, and very exciting. So obviously, one of the biggest aspects of any horror movie, and especially the Nightmare films, is its very inventive and elaborate kill scenes that we get in the Nightmare films. Without spoiling anything, what can we expect from Dylan's New Nightmare in that aspect?
So I know all of that when it comes to the Freddy franchise. I'll just say that, but keep in mind that this is not necessarily stuff that's going to take place in the dream realm, because that was the same with New Nightmare as well. Mm-hmm. So we're more limited to real world situations at times, and there's the whole, I think everyone's going to love the first sequence, because that's more traditional stuff that people are going to appreciate, and I think it plays really fucking cool when we bring everyone back into the fold and everything. I tried to approach the gore a little bit. Let me just say this: I will never shy away from gore. I've always been a big gore fan. I tried to play the gore at times a little differently than a lot of people play it, and I think it's very effective for that reason. But there's a couple of things that I brought to this movie that somehow, in 9 different Freddy movies, there's 2 things in specific that we did that have never been done in a Nightmare movie, that when people see it, they're like, why haven't we seen that before? Like, and one of them is very much tied into gore. Okay. So it's that's the reason I say that. There's something very plain about Freddy that no one ever plays into when it comes to gore, and it's going to be really fun to see people's reactions to that moment.
Oh, man. Exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. So just to go slightly off topic here, I'm not too sure if you've been asked this before or not really, but as you've said, you've got a really great relationship with Vincent DiSanti now, Womp Stomp Films, Never Hike Alone. We had Vincent on the podcast actually about a month or so ago, and he was, fantastic to chat to as well. But because you have such a great relationship with Vincent now and Womp Stomp, and one of the perks on Indiegogo is a nice promo picture of your Freddy versus Vincent's Jason. Is there any chance that at some point in the future we'll see some sort of collab between the two and get your Freddy versus Vin's Jason, maybe?
I mean, it would be a complete lie if I said we hadn't talked about it. There is a particular way into that. If there is enough response to this, that Vin, what's been fun for me to see is after we filmed, like Vin actually came to me at one point. He's like, it could actually work if we did blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, no, it absolutely could. So there are ways into that. And the picture perk is intended to whet everyone's whistles. The thing is, obviously, he has to finish his Never Hike Alone story. This would just be sort of a side thing, but it's definitely something that could happen, and something that that we have a way into if there's enough desire for it.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Teasing, but yeah, very good, very good. That at least something's been discussed, so that's exciting.
Indeed,
that is exciting.
And I would say there's a chance that if anyone wants to come to Mad Monster, Arizona, July 7th to the 9th this year, they might have some cool things to check out, or at least maybe that Saturday, because it does turn out that both we and Vin are going to have tables at Mad Monster this year. So
okay,
there might be some cool shenanigans. We'll see what happens. Robert Englund happens to be the lead guest at the event, so we're gonna see what we can arrange.
Oh wow! So maybe a collab between the three of you there. Maybe
I would never say that we could collab with Robert, but we might be able to show him some things that we've been working on that might be fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So how was I don't know if we've actually touched on it really, but how was the shoot of the movie? Like, was it relatively smooth throughout? Because I saw Dave was actually on the Slaughtered Lamb channel a while ago now, another fantastic YouTube channel out there. And he chipped his tooth when he was getting his makeup done, and he chipped his tooth at the time. So did everything kind of go to plan, or was there
we had a few fires to be put out. We had 3 different gloves, and throughout the process all 3 had blades that broke off at varying points. So we had to pay to get all 3 gloves reinforced, because the glove maker, they were originally made as sort of display pieces, not to be functional in a Freddy movie. So we had to make some adjustments and stuff. But yeah, Dave's tooth, man, what a kick in the nuts. Because so we had 6 days to shoot. The first day was no Freddy. The second day was the first day of Freddy. And we had 3 full days of Freddy throughout the process. And the very first day, there's only 2 shots in the movie where Freddy's tooth isn't cracked, because the rest of it happened the first day, and it just took Dave a bit to adjust to the situation, because again, he's a Canadian in the US. He has healthcare back home, but he doesn't want to, his doctor basically warned him against. He's like, don't get it fixed down there, come back to me. And I don't blame him. But so he just had to adjust to it. But honestly, the chipped tooth added so much to the look, to making it look rotted and shit like that. It was really cool the way that he was able to roll with it, and it added to everything so much. We just had to roll with stuff. There was about 3 or 4 what I would consider concerning fires. And that was definitely one, because that was the first day, and we had 3 full days of Freddy to do. Obviously, very key stuff. And if it was a lesser actor than Dave McRae, they might have bitched out about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And been like, I can't do this. But no, Dave hung tough like a soldier, man, and just powered through the whole week with a chipped tooth, and it was awesome. It added to the character, it really did. It's so cool. How it ended up working out. And now for future installments, we're going to have to black out half of one of his teeth right in the front to make sure that it matches and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I'll just, accidentally chip it again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't think because that was basically, it happened when he was putting in the false teeth. So there's 1 or 2 shots with the false teeth in it that'll be in the movie. But then from then on, it's his actual teeth that we just dirtied up and used the chip on. And, it works out really well.
Yeah, awesome. Will we see the kind of behind the scenes footage as well alongside the release of the movie? Will that all come out at the same time?
So the behind the scenes special is intended to be essentially a full length feature. We're aiming to do like an hour and a half long thing because we had, I think by like the 4th or 5th day, we had like 780 gigabytes worth of shit filmed for behind the scenes. And he's going to be doing interviews with people and essentially breaking it down by the day, if I'm not mistaken. So like day 1, it'll have it'll have like bits from the movie and then stuff behind the scenes for those bits and things like that. The intention is eventually we can do screenings where we present the movie and the behind the scenes special as like 2 hour and 15-minute block that people could really get a kick out of. But yeah, there's going to be a full behind this. I am big on behind the scenes. I filmed behind the scenes for Vin's Disappear music video for the Never Hike Alone series. It's a 3-minute Jason music video. We filmed behind the scenes and made an hour and a half long behind the scenes special for a 3-minute music video. Like, I love behind the scenes. So I had a guy specifically for that named Josh Schultz. He did a kick-ass job, and he's putting all that together behind the scenes right now.
Awesome. So will that be coming on the YouTube channel as well as the film?
Yes. We'll give the film, room to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe let it sit there for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, and then we'll release the behind the scenes a little bit after that. And it should satisfy a lot of people because it's going to be a good special.
Brill. So where are we in terms of the editing of the film out? Because I think you've said they've done 3 cuts now, and I think you did some filming last week as well. So
correct.
Whereabouts are we with the editing of the film? Are we still on track for a kind of a summer release? Is that
yes? Yep. Still on track for a summer release. We have an idea of where we'd like to premiere the film, and those paying attention to this interview might have an idea where that might be based on things that I've said. But nothing is in stone yet. So that's just the hope right now. But yeah, summer release. Definitely. We just have to figure out if there's any particular film festivals that we want to submit to. A lot of film festivals are dicks about accepting projects that are available publicly online. So if there's any festivals we have our hearts set on, we need to make sure that we submit to them before we actually air it on YouTube. We can have premieres and whatnot, but we can't have it publicly available if we submit to certain festivals. So we have to work out some of those kinks. But I can say that as of right now, the film, yes, we've gotten through 3 cuts: the editor's cut, the director's cut, and the producer's cut. And we knew we were going to have to film some exteriors and stuff in LA to tie everything together because we filmed the movie in Arizona here. Mm-hmm. So I drove out to California last week. This week I should say, because we're filming this on a Sunday. But yeah, I went out there and we got some stuff that we're gonna cut into the movie. It's gonna open it up, make sure it doesn't feel as 4-walled as it maybe did without the exteriors. But yeah, it's gonna really place the movie in LA the same way the original New Nightmare was placed in LA, and I think it's really going to help tremendously. But the film itself, it still needs sound, color, and final VFX plus score. So the rough cut is done, minus the stuff that we shot this week. That still needs to be cut in. But as far as the teaser and the trailer go, because there's going to be a new teaser trailer, about 30 seconds, and then a trailer, which will be about a minute and a half. And we intend to release the teaser trailer, if we can, before the end of March, with the trailer releasing about a week after that. And hopefully we can have a release date, or at least a premiere date at the end of the trailer once we show that. But that's the plan. So a teaser and a trailer should be available within just a few weeks of this podcast airing, if the time all works out. Timing, rather.
Very exciting, very exciting. So what are the plans? So once this is kind of out there, what are the future plans for these movies? Are you planning on making more Nightmare fan films, or is this one and done for you? Like, where do you see this progressing after this?
This has always been intended to be the first part of a full story. It obviously depends on the people's response. Vin had to make 2 parts before he was able to raise enough money to do like a full-length version of the rest. I'm hoping that this first part would allow us the room to just raise the money to film the rest in a full-length feature scenario. Or, you know, in a more perfect world, we show this to a couple people and we are asked to present the idea to the Craven estate to possibly be a full installment, perhaps the final installment of certain players that I have not mentioned for reasons. But yeah, we'll see what might happen as far as we need to see what happens after this one's released. That's quite frankly the most honest answer that I can give. The plan is to do more parts. We do have a continuing story for it, but a lot of things could happen from this first part.
Yeah, awesome. Because I was going to ask as well, and you know, you've touched on it there, and you know, you can answer this however which way you would want. But do you think this would be kind of? Do you think this will lead to potential work for either yourself or Dave, for example, picking up, you know, more official Nightmare films? Do you think, and I suppose this might lead on more for Dave because he's got to be in the costume, he's in the makeup, he is Freddy. People are, I think, at the moment are apprehensive about new Nightmare films because it's not Robert Englund that's going to be in the makeup, whereas this could be like a real kind of test drive to say, well, actually, look how awesome this could look. I mean,
I think this is going to turn some heads. I think specifically Dave is going to turn some heads and change some minds. I've said along the way, but especially after filming, I think there's going to be a contingent of people that think Robert did it. I think we'll get a contingent of comments saying, wow, when did Robert do this? You know, because Dave did that good of a job. I'm not saying he did it like Robert. I'm saying he embodied Freddy so well that some people won't be able to determine the difference. You know, not everyone. A lot of people obviously will. Most people obviously will, but there'll be a contingent that won't. And I am of the mindset that if what comes out of this is that Dave McRae becomes the new Freddy, I mean, then I've contributed to the franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's great for me. I would obviously love to maintain involvement in some way, shape, or form if they do decide to do that or use any of our ideas, because ultimately this is this is a 30-minute, 25 to 30-minute piece that I do have the full story for. I actually have about 3 different versions of the full story for, depending on different people's involvement or non-involvement. And one of them could very much be the bookended Nightmare film that people very much want, as long as they're okay with it being in the new Nightmare continuity. So I have that ready to present were I to be put into a position to present such an idea. So I'm trying to make sure that Dave is saying, like, this is a $40,000 job interview. And I was like, yeah, to me, it's a $40,000 business card. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's not to downplay what the project is, but like, that's the point, right? We're trying to show what we can do with the property we love, given even just the teensiest amount of the budget. So that perhaps the Craven estate is like, well, look at what they did with the teensiest amount of the budget. What could they do with actually the full weight of what we can provide behind them? You know, again, I'm not saying that that's what we're counting on. I try and adopt a motto that I got from Kevin Smith. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. And so I like to do what he mentioned years ago, which is I like to maintain a reasonable degree of unreasonability. I like to be reasonable in what might happen, but I also like to play the what would happen if I won the lottery game in my own mind. Because again, that's where my saying of a series of wouldn't it be cool ifs has proven true. Like, wouldn't it be cool if Miko said he'd be down to do a fan film? Wouldn't it be cool if he actually read the script, let alone read it and liked it quick enough to tell me the same day? Wouldn't it be cool if we got this person involved? Wouldn't it be cool if we got this person? Like, all of these things just keep happening for the project.
Yeah.
And I don't expect any of it, but I put it out into the universe. You know what I mean? Because what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't happen. What's the best that could happen? Oh, the universe listens.
Yeah, and so far it has.
It has.
So far, it has.
So far. It's so much so that there was a big change between the teaser and when we actually filmed. I think that the COVID delay, there was basically a 2.5-year delay because of COVID, because Dave McRae was in Canada, and there were border restrictions where you couldn't come down unless it was considered essential travel, which we were not, unfortunately. So that's why it was delayed for so long. But Miko and I were talking again on Wednesday when we were filming the pickups. Like, I think that COVID delay was the best thing to happen for the project, because the project became so much stronger throughout that time. The script was tightened up, certain behind the scenes roles were replaced, and it just has become such a strong product because of it. And we're all very, like, don't confuse me, we're not grateful COVID happened, but
No.
the delay has made the product stronger.
Yeah. And in that 2 years, I would imagine a lot more, because I think I heard about it before COVID, but I'd imagine in that 2 years, a lot more people have heard about the project and had free money as well at that time as well, because no one could spend it on anything.
Yeah, once we so the first campaign ended, we raised like 30 when we were aiming for 40. But then, once we had an idea that we were going to be able to start production again, we started the finishing funds campaign just to get the remaining 10. We clawed that together. And so we put together, once that was together, and once the border restrictions eased, we finally were able to film, which wasn't literally until November, 4 months ago or whatever. So once we did that, we got on it. The money was just waiting in the bank account. Until then, I wasn't like, there were people being like, oh, this is never going to happen. They just took the money and ran. And I was like, no, dude, like, this is a legitimate COVID delay. And I think the nice thing about it is that we were communicative enough that in that 2.5-3 year delay, we only had, I think, 2 backers request their money back. Like, everyone else believed in the project enough that they wanted to just let it ride and see what happens. And that's what I'm most excited about, to show that specific segment of our backers that it was worth it for them to just hang around and just believe in us. Like, that's all. My goal is to make sure Dylan's New Nightmare is up there with the Never Hike series and It's Me, Billy, as far as fan films go. And I think that we were able to do that.
Awesome. Did you have any issues with New Line or Craven Estate in terms of making the film? Have they been in touch with you, good or bad?
Nope, haven't heard a peep. And I think that's interesting because, well, legally we're okay, because we're not keeping any of the money. Every bit of the money is going towards the production. Any excess we would contribute to Wes Craven's favorite charity, which I have outlined in the campaign. But the whole thing is, as long as you're not profiting from using the Freddy license, and as long as it's not a full-length feature for the most part, as far as what I can tell, Vin seems to be doing okay with Never Hike Alone 2. And if that's the case, then we'll probably push for the full-length wrap-up. But as long as we're not making money from it, I think that's where we're okay. But again, we'll see what I have a feeling. Vin even said himself after we released the 5 images, he said, in a world of Friday the 13th fan films, make a Nightmare on Elm Street fan film. Because the response that we got, I mean, Friday the 13th is flooded with fan films. Like, there's dozens and dozens at this point. There's not many Freddy fan films, because to do it right, you got to really put in time, effort, and money. And the response from just 5 images from our movie was so tremendous. And again, so many people were like, this looks better than the makeup for the last 4 movies or whatever. And like, I was like, I agree. Like, personally, I know I'm biased, but personally, our makeup is my Freddy favorite Freddy makeup, because it just combined all of the best ones. And it's so fucking cool and creepy and scary to look at. And Dave embodies it so well. It's just a giant confluence of awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And the makeup does look absolutely incredible. The images look incredible. And I think this is the thing as well, because there is a certain level of trust with this project, I think. I know that I'm going to try and not touch on those kind of films as best as possible, but there is ones on there in the public domain which kind of draw people in because people are thirsty for Nightmare on Elm Street content, which we've been starved of, bar the remake, which is, I'm not a fan of the remake whatsoever. I think Jackie Earle Haley did a pretty decent job as Freddy, but everything around it was a disaster. So I think people are just so thirsty for Nightmare on Elm Street content, and now that we're getting it in this such rich form, or it look, in terms of these images and the trailer, it's just refreshing. And I think that is what people have been missing since New Nightmare. That's the last
well,
one.
That's the funny thing about the trailers, right? Because between the teaser trailer and the trailer, it's 2 minutes of footage. That's technically 8% of the film right now. So, like, we have to be very careful what we release. We don't want to show too much. The trailer is going to. That's the thing. I've had people I've shown the rough versions of the teaser and the trailer for, and I've heard goosebumps from both sides. Like, they'd be like, "Oh, I got goosebumps watching that," and then I heard on the trailer, "Oh, I got goosebumps from watching that," from different people. So, like, different people like each one differently, but I will say that there's nostalgia woven through both. The teaser trailer may or may not involve an original version of a classic rhyme that everyone loves so much. The trailer may or may not have some nostalgic sound clips to ease everyone into what we're doing here. So I'm very excited for everyone to see the teaser and the trailer because it's going to hit for different reasons than the images did, but they're just going to hit just as hard, just for different reasons. So I think they're going to drum up a lot of interest in the final product, and it's just a matter of us bringing in that final product, to land without any scrapes or scuffs along the way. And that's what we're hard at work on the background doing right now.
Excellent. Now, perfect. So, obviously, this is something that has been, on the go for you for 3 or 4 years now. From what you originally kind of expected the film to be when you started out on this journey to the final cuts that you're seeing now, has this completely kind of exceeded your expectations of what you originally set out to do, or was this kind of just the dream all along to get to this point where you are now?
It's a lot what I had in mind. We were able to achieve a lot of what I was hoping to achieve when I wrote the script, but the execution of it all and the way the filming went, like, I had people that have worked on professional sets telling me, even after the first day, I had one person come up and say, "I just wanted to let you know that was like the best first day that I've had on set in a really long time. Like, everything is running smooth. Everyone here is awesome." And I was like, yeah. And like, by the end, like, we had a big post-production meeting and, a party and whatnot. And we all gathered up and everyone just was so happy with the production. No one was a diva. Like, there was no issues like that. Vin even said it was almost too much help, because you'd ask for one thing and 4 people would go run to handle it and stuff like that. But yeah, just the final product it's what I had in my mind, which is very exciting for me because, oftentimes you got to make sacrifices and you just can't get what you envisioned. But I mean, just specifically, especially Ron, Cindy, and most especially Dave and Miko, they both killed it. It's like this movie, the directing is fine. The cinematography is great. The acting is phenomenal. Like, and the effects are fun as hell. So, like, the directing is probably the thing we'll get complimented on the least, because it's just everything else came together so well for what you want in a Freddy movie. You want the gore to be cool and creative. You want the dialogue to be snappy. And like, that's the nice thing. Dave has been around a long time and he constantly talks about the quality of the writing. He's like, yeah, the writing's great. He's like, it's just a matter of making sure that we're executing what the writing is. And so, like, that's a compliment to me and everything like that. So I take it very much as so. And it's awesome. what I'm seeing now in post is like, I'm just so excited to show people. And I think that it should be an indicator of my thinking on it, to be honest.
Yeah. Brilliant. And everyone out there, go and check out the Dylan's New Nightmare Indiegogo campaign. Keep an eye on everything, because I'm super excited for this one. I can't wait to see it. As we've alluded to, I've said it so many times on the show, but I'm so excited for it. So yeah, brilliant. Now we'll leave the Dylan's New Nightmare just for a quick second, because I do have a big question I want to ask you, Cecil, and that is, do you have? And you kind of touched it earlier, but do you have a favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
So yeah, for the longest time, it was 3. And it still might be, but honestly, the one that has meant the most to me and that I've probably gone back to the most has been New Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just love it so much. It's the only horror movie that my dad ever went with me to the theater to go see. And that in and of itself made it a very special experience. It was, I mean, I did see Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare in a theater, but other than that, it was the only Freddy movie I'd seen in the theater. The only what you might call worthwhile Freddy movie to see in the theater. But quite frankly, seeing 6 in the theater was a formative experience as well, because I got to put on the glasses when she did and see the cool shit. And I did love it. Like I'm not a Freddy's Dead hater like so many other people are. I love the whole franchise, but yeah, I mean, New Nightmare, I think, has to be the one because it brought Wes back. It made Freddy scary again. It put Heather into a whole new sort of area to play in the franchise. And I endeavored to do the same for Miko, you know what I mean? Amongst possibly some other things that I can't talk about. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think New Nightmare has to have taken over my spot for favorite at this point.
Awesome. Yeah. And I thought it would be, to be honest. Yeah, I was surprised when you said Dream Warriors, because Dream Warriors is my personal favorite, and pretty much has. Dream Warriors was the second Nightmare on Elm Street film that I ever watched, and
there you go.
And it was I just fell in love with it, and it's my second favorite movie of all time.
Nice. So. I can't blame you for it. Honestly, it's probably the most fun. It has maybe the most creative and iconic kills. And it had Nancy, so like there's so much to love. I can't fault you for that at all. Again, it was the same for me. It's just New Nightmare has been pushed above because of all the DNN stuff,
Yeah,
it'd be hard not to.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Fantastic. So can I just ask as well, what is next for you, Cecil, after this New Nightmare journey is over? Have you got any plans like following this, or is it just going to be continuing the New Nightmare journey?
I would like to be able to do something. So I have a Word file with over 50 different film ideas. I have about 10 outlines, and I have 3 full-length scripts like ready to go of my own material. So if anyone asks after this comes out, if they look at the film and be like, wait, you made this on $40,000? What else do you have? I have a laundry list of things, but 3 scripts in particular, and one of them is my own slasher, and I would love to be able to focus on that. Nora already said that she would want to do the makeup for it, and it's a unique but very much 80s style slasher that no one has done before, that has a really cool silhouette and backstory. And so I would love to be able to present that to the world if I can get enough attention via DNN. But even outside of that, I have a scary kids movie in the vein of like Ernest Scared Stupid. And then I have a sci-fi thriller that gets really dark towards the end. So there's a lot of fun stuff that I could get into. I have a very unique origin werewolf story that would be really cool too. But it just depends on what people are interested in after this comes out. But I'm cocked and ready to rock with a lot of different bullets in my chamber.
Awesome. And would you consider crowdfunding them, or is that just something that you like a studio kind of thing to put yourself in the shop window essentially with this film to get?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if I think that the original idea could draw as much attention as this, I would. I think I'd have a hard time crowdfunding any original idea before finishing this story, now that I've started this journey. So I don't know that I'd have the goodwill until this is all said and done to do my own original thing. I would love to be wrong about that. If I could put out Dylan's New Nightmare and people are like, yeah, give us your original thing, we'll pay for it, then shit, I'll crowdfund it. You know what I mean? But realistically, to do my slasher right, I would need to have at least $500,000, like 500 to $1 million to do it correctly. But it would be one of those that if I could raise that, it would easily make 20 to 30 in the theater, if not more. So it's one of those kind of ideas. It's just a matter of getting it into the right, right cogs to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this journey will garner that attention for you and get people, on board with your journey and make that reality. Hopefully.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
So before we wrap up, Cecil, where can people see you? Can they meet? Are you doing any conventions? Obviously, I think you've touched on Mad Monster. Have you got any other plans for any more conventions coming up? Or
yeah, the Mad Monster Arizona, July 7th to the 9th, we'll be there, and there might be a convention we do in August out here too, called Gathering of Ghouls, put on by some of our friends that run a year-round Halloween store called Terror Trader out here. And they're really, they're cool people, and they're putting together their own event in August. So we may do something there, like a premiere and a Q&A, and have tables there as well. So we'll see what happens. But those are the only two conventions right now. We do eventually, hopefully sooner than later, want to get out to Monsterpalooza in California. But yeah, I don't know how soon that'll happen. But yeah, Mad Monster Arizona is going to be the most immediate place to do it. We'll be here. We'll be over on our channel, the Horror Show channel, doing YouTube all the way up until we're doing a ton of Evil Dead coverage in April. We're covering the whole franchise and leading up to Evil Dead Rise, because we're very excited about that one. And then we'll be doing a tier list for the movies after that. So lots of cool stuff coming up on the channel.
Fantastic. I actually you funny just mentioned Evil Dead Rise there. I saw today it has 100% tomato rating reader or whatever they do on Rotten Tomatoes. And I was saying to someone at work today, Evil Dead's never let me down. Like in the whole franchise, it's just delivered on every level, and I've no reason to think this one won't either. So
well, and the funny thing about it is this is now the 5th movie in the franchise. Wait, hang on. Let me get that. Let me make sure I'm right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this will be the 5th movie in the franchise. 3 of the 4 movies that have come out so far have told the same story. So like, I'm just, but yeah, no, we loved the trailer. I'm very excited. I thought that line that the mom has, she's like, "Mommy's with the maggots now." I was like, oh that's fucked up. Like, I'm very excited about this movie. We're so pumped for Evil Dead Rise. So yeah, we actually have a whole set in the garage that's the fruit cellar set that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing our reviews from the fruit cellar, and then I have the normal and evil Ashy Slashy puppet, and we're going to start doing first time watches of the core Evil Dead movies with Ashy Slashy and evil Ashy Slashy. So I'm writing those out, and we're going to do those as like, first time watches, because those are so popular on YouTube. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Cecil, I massively appreciate your time. We've gone for nearly an hour and 40 minutes there. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I thoroughly appreciate it. And everyone out there, go and check out Dylan's New Nightmare if you haven't done so already. Back the project at Indiegogo. One thing we didn't actually touch on, which I'm just going to touch on real quick here to plug it. These perks on this project are some of the most affordable perks I've seen on any Indiegogo campaign. £4 gets your name in the credits, I believe. In terms of English money, anyway, yeah. I think it was £4. Digital pack was £8. Incredible value, so go and check that out if you haven't already done so, and go and fund it, for Cecil. The movie's coming out regardless, but get some extra funds out there for charity.
Get your name in the movie. You know what I mean?
When is the cutoff for that? Just so people know.
So the cutoff's not going to be until the film is complete, and so once the film is nearing completion, we will stop the current finishing funds campaign, and we'll let everyone know that the cutoff's going to be in like a week or 2 weeks to make sure they have a chance to get it in the actual movie. But yeah, as we get closer to having the film finished, the cutoff will be then. We will likely launch a home video campaign once the film's out, where we just offer like Blu-rays and stuff. I have a number of things from the movie that we're going to be selling that'll be screen used props, but I can't put them on the current campaign because the movie's not out yet. So I can't show people what the screen used props are. So yeah, those will be part of the home video campaign and stuff too. But yeah, that's the plan. So you can get your name involved all the way up until it's almost done, which is towards the summertime.
Perfect. Well, we'll leave it there, Cecil. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a ton of fun to speak to you, and like I say, I can't wait to see Dylan's New Nightmare. It's one of my most anticipated projects of the year, to be honest. I
appreciate that.
Super excited.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on. It was a delight to speak to you as well. Well, speak at you, I guess. I talk a lot, so sorry about that.
That's absolutely fine. My pleasure. And like I say, that's always the best way, usually. People are here to hear what you have to say anyway, so that's all good.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate it.